Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another online lecture in platform technologies. So, in today's lecture, we are going to be looking at virtualization and cloud computing. So, we have covered a number of aspects of operating systems and basic computing in the beginning of the course. Then we have also looked at some of the networking capabilities. So today we are going to look at how these things can be further extended into the concept of virtualization and also cloud computing. So the basic idea of virtualization is that we take a single computer hardware and abstract that into multiple several execution environments. So what do we mean by that is, say in a typical computer, a normal computer that we would normally talk about, what we have is we would have a layer of the physical hardware. On top of that, we would have a layer of operating system, and on top of that, we would have our applications running. But with virtualization, what we would have is we would start with the underlying hardware layer, but on top of that, what we would have is a virtualization layer. And this virtualization layer will allow us to create number of different execution environments. So what do we mean by execution environments is it is almost like a computer. It will have some processing capabilities. It would have other access to other hardware resources, and then it would be able to operate like a separate computer. So that is the basic idea of virtualization. So then we can have each of these execution environments can run many different operating systems and so on. So what we essentially get out of this is using a single computer, a single physical hardware to run multiple operating systems, but also running them in parallel, in concurrently at the same time. So it's not like a dual boot computer where you have one operating system at a point in time, maybe you boot back into a different operating system. That is something else. This is you would have both the operating systems running in parallel at the same time. So that is the main thing that we would get out of using virtualization in a computing environment. So what we would start here is we would say our normal non-virtual machine is basically it has a layer of hardware, and on top of that it would have the operating system kernel, and on top of it we would have our processors running. The place where we would do our programming, our programs would interact with any sort of system level interactions would be between the kernel level and the process level. Whereas in a virtual machine type of situation, what we would have is you would have the hardware layer, but on top of that we may have a virtual manager, virtual machine manager. There are going to be a number of variations of this approach. We will discuss that in the later part of this lecture. But in essence, what we are going to have is some level of virtual machine manager, and on top of that you would have this abstraction of a virtual machine. So each of these abstractions, each of these virtual machines are going to be separate instances of a computer. We can consider them as individual computers. Then inside each of these computers, we are able to run different operating systems, and then in turn they will be able to run different processes as we want. So that is the basic idea of having virtualization in a computer. So there are three main parts that we would identify when we are using virtualization in a computer. So we would start with the host. So that is the underlying hardware system. So host is the underlying hardware system, that the physical computer that we have. Then on top of that, we should have something that is going to manage these virtual machines. So we would call it the virtual machine manager, VMM, or a hypervisor. So both of these terminologies we can use. They are the application or the feature that is what is going to manage these multiple instances of virtual computers. So there's going to be an underlying physical computer. On top of that, there are going to be separate sections or separate instances of these virtual computers, and they need to be managed by this middle layer of virtual machine manager. And any operating system that is going to run inside one of these virtual machines is what we would identify as the guest operating system. So on the host hardware, we would have some virtualization, and inside virtualization, we can have a number of guest operating systems. So this is the basic architecture of any virtualization that we can have. So when thinking about virtualization, it is not a new concept either. It has existed particularly in the early days of computing with mainframe computers, where there were a lot of virtualization based applications and operating systems. So they started as that. But later on in the 90s and later, what became was the processors of general purpose computers and personal computers became much faster, so that they were also able to cater to these multiple operating systems running in parallel in their CPUs. So then after sort of 90s and 2000s, we were able to have these virtualization even in general purpose personal computing type devices. So you may have come across, or you could try out things like VMware, VirtualBox, these type of virtual machine managers. You may even install them in a Windows or a Linux computer and then have another operating system running inside them. So these are like different types of virtual machine managers and so on that we will discuss a bit later. But essentially, running virtualization does not require any sort of high-end computing capabilities. Most of the general computers these days are capable of running virtualization in their platforms. So now let's discuss about some of the key benefits that we can get from using virtualization. So instead of having an independent computer with a single operating system, why do we want to go for this virtualization approach where we are able to have multiple operating systems running inside them? So one of the reasons is because each of these virtualizations are independent entities, independent execution environments with separate operating systems, processes, and so on, we can create independent user environments. Say, for example, if multiple users need to share a computer, there are two ways to do that. So if we have a single computer environment, we can have under the same operating system level, we can let different users access the same functions, same operating system, but different applications they can use. But what happens with this is, this execution environment is still shared. They are still in a shared execution environment. A lot of processes and services are going to be shared among these applications. But on the other hand, say if we go with the approach of virtualization, here the split is all the way to the operating system layer. So each of them are going to have separate operating systems. So any services and things that are used inside that operating system environment is going to be independent to different users. So this way we can let different users use the same computer, same physical computer environment, but still have them protected from one virtual operating environment to other virtual operating environment. We can still have certain shared resources, but we can still safely separate them. Then another advantage that we can get with virtualization is, because these are running as at a different virtual level, they are not physically connected or attached to the physical hardware itself, we can easily move them between computer to computer, between hardware to another hardware, because essentially virtual machine is going to run at a higher level layer. So you can copy that, move that to a different place. Or for example, if our hardware is failing, if one computer we expect that to be maintained or repaired or something, what we can do is, if it is a virtual machine, we can simply stop the virtual machine at the higher layer. We can move that image to a different layer, different computer, different physical computer, and put it on top of another virtual machine manager and continue to run. So we can do what is called suspend and resume. So we can post whatever that is happening in one execution environment. So say if we have two physical hardware, so these are two physical hardwares that we have. Inside these physical hardwares, we have different virtual machines that are available. So each of them are having different virtual machines. So now, for example, if we have a virtual machine here, and that needs to be, this particular computer needs to be maintained, or there are some issues with that, what we can do is, we can simply go into this and suspend that from operating and move that information across to another machine and now start it from here. So we can suspend and resume in a different place. So we can create a snapshot of what is currently running here and move it there and continue to running without any issues. So this has a lot of advantages, especially when we are managing large number of computers. This may help us manage these things, and also there are some other reasons when we have larger server environments and so on. This may be useful in many of those situations. Then another reason why we may want to use virtualization is what is called consolidation. So here what we can do is, we can have a single hardware platform, and on top of it we can have different environments and we can use them for different purposes. Say for example, you are an application developer, you are a programmer who develops programs for different platforms. So now what you can do is, you can have different operating system versions running on different virtual machines. So say you want to test your application in Windows 10 and Windows 8 and some other older versions of Windows and maybe some Linux variations and so on. Instead of having like 10 different physical computers with different operating systems and testing them separately, you can have a single hardware component. Inside that you can have a number of virtual machines, and each of them you can test different things independently. So that is one of the advantages we get with virtualization, consolidation. Another thing that we can do is what is called templating. So here what we can do is, we can create a standard template for an operating system environment. Say we want to give certain set of applications, programs and so on for students in a computer lab. So for this semester you are doing a number of courses, one networking course, one operating systems course, one programming languages course, and another something like that. So each of these courses you need different software. Say one IDE like Visual C++ or something, another one you need for your operating system course. Likewise, you need certain different things. So what we can do is we can create one image for in a instance of an operating system. We can create that with all the applications and settings and configurations, and then we can create copies of those and issue that to all the students, and then students can use that and run it on even on their own computers or in their lab computers and still have the same environment and same experience across the board. So this could be useful in such situations. Even in commercial applications, we can use this by creating a template of an operating system and then deploying it with multiple users, and they will create their own instances but based on the same underlying structure. Then another advantage that we can get is an extension of this freezing and suspending and running again approach, which is live migration. So what we can have is, say, if we have one computer and we have, say, a number of physical computers, and inside each of these physical computers we may have a number of virtual machines. So what we can do is we can safely move these things from one virtual machine to the other, because they are essentially running at a higher level. They don't have any coupling with the underlying hardware layer. We can easily move them across to different machines, and while we move them, we can ensure that there are no interruption to users who are using these machines, because we can just copy everything to the other machine, then stop it, and at the same time start it at the other end. And if we manage the networks accordingly, we can run these things continuously without having any interruption. So these also have a lot of advantages in commercial applications, because we can continue to have the business continuation without any interruption by using these approaches. So these are some of the common advantages that we would get by using virtualization. So with virtualization, what we got was we were able to run multiple instances of these operating system in a single hardware layer. And with these various benefits of live migration, consolidation, templating, and so on, that is what is the underlying basis for cloud computing as we know today. We will discuss about cloud computing a bit later, but the main feature that we are going to extend into cloud computing is we have all these capabilities at virtualization, and then if we can do that through some online means, through some APIs, for example, then that is what essentially cloud computing is. So virtualization is the basic technology that we have, and then cloud computing is a way that we use virtualization. So we would discuss about this a bit later when we are discussing cloud computing. So now let's look at some of the main types of virtual machines that you would come across. But before that, the main thing to remember is there are going to be many variations of these virtual machine managers, and they are going to interact with the underlying hardware layer slightly differently, but essentially that they are enabling different virtual execution environments and different parallel operating systems is going to be the same. There are going to be slight different architectural differences in these arrangements, but they are essentially going to do the same thing. And one of the other things to remember is virtual machines are going to make it easy to create a new instance of a machine. So for example, if you have, say, 10 different computers and you have to install the operating system and number of applications in this operating system, it may take quite a bit of time to do that one by one. But with virtualization, you can create one instance and then copy it across multiple instances of these computers, and it is not going to take significant time. So it's a much simpler and faster approach. But the disadvantage of that is, because it is easier, we may end up using too many instances more than what we need. Say for example, if we have a particular hardware layer that we have, particular hardware capability, if we share it with say 3 virtual machines, whatever the underlying hardware is going to be shared among 3 virtual machines. If we split it up to say 5 virtual machines, now this is going to be divided into 5. So the available CPU, available processing, available memory, everything is going to be split into whatever the number of virtual machines. So it could be a disadvantage because now each of them are going to have less amount of resources. So this is something that we have to be mindful of. This is what we call as virtual machine sprawl, where we create too many virtual machines, and that leads to deficiencies in performance. So we will try to avoid this, try to avoid creating virtual machines unnecessarily, too many virtual machines unnecessarily. But because it's possible, we will create if we need it, but we will try to avoid too many virtual machines if possible. Then the other thing to remember about virtual machines is, even with different implementations, different architectural types of virtual machines, we are still going to go through a particular life cycle in their operation. So they would initially be created by a virtual machine manager. So that instance of a virtual machine is going to be created by the virtual machine manager, and then any necessary resources are going to be allocated to that particular virtual machine. So things like what are the processors, or if there are what part of the processors, a core of the processor, for example, what is the memory allocation, do they have network connectivity, available storage space, and so on. So these are going to be allocated using this. Then the next thing to do is, like for example, in certain types of these, we will discuss as we discuss, in type 0 virtual machines, the resources are going to be allocated in a dedicated manner, and whereas in other types of virtual machine, they are going to be shared among different virtual machine instances. Then once we have this virtual machine and it's running, we may use it. But at a later stage, if we no longer need it, we can just simply delete the instance of the virtual machine. In most cases, the virtual machine will be available as a representation, as a file. So just by deleting that file, you can simply remove that virtual machine. So that is basically what we would have as a life cycle of a virtual machine in any of these architectures, in any of these implementations. So the first type of virtual machine that we are going to look at is what is called the type 0 hypervisor, or the type 0 virtual machine manager. So basically, these are the oldest type of virtual machines that were used in the earlier parts of computing, earlier times of computing. And what they have is, they have the virtual machine manager implemented at the hardware level. So they are implemented as a firmware at the hardware level. So they don't need any additional operating systems. The hardware itself has a virtual machine manager implemented as a firmware. So there's no special operating system, special features are needed, because the hardware, as you get it, will be able to handle multiple virtual machines. So any operating system on top of that hardware, any virtual machine instance on top of that hardware layer is going to be allocated the available hardware resources in a dedicated manner. So that is one of the main differences with this type of virtual machine and the others. Here you would have the resources, the hardware resources allocated in a dedicated manner compared to other types of virtual machines. One of the disadvantages or one of the challenges that we would have is about allocating input-output resources. Say for example, if we have a processor and a memory, we can easily split the processor. Say if our processor has 4 cores, for example, we can say each of those cores are allocated to each of the virtual machine instances. So that is dividable. Say if we have a memory, for example, we can split the memory into different parts. Say 1 GB for this, 1 GB for that. We can again split that in a dedicated manner. But with input-output devices, it would be difficult to allocate them in a dedicated manner. Say if we have 4 instances of virtual machines, then we need to have 4 networking connections. That could be a problem. Then 4 displays and so like various things that we may need to have, we need to have them separately. So those could be that could be a challenge, particularly about input-output devices. And in these virtual machine environments, sometimes they may also build some additional common entities like a control partition that can allow these different machines to communicate with each other. So it may implement an additional partition which may be connected to all the virtual machines and they can communicate through that. So that is type 0 virtual machine managers. These are the basic oldest type virtual machine managers which give dedicated allocation of resources. The second type of virtual machine manager is what we call as type 1 hypervisors or type 1 virtual machine managers. So these are virtual machine managers that are built into special purpose operating systems. So what we have here is the virtual machine manager capabilities are available as special purpose operating systems. So previously what was implemented in type 0 as hardware level firmware, now it is a special purpose operating system that is running on top of the hardware layer. So on top of the hardware layer, we have an operating system layer, and that operating system is going to be special purpose operating system with certain capabilities to do virtual machine management. So here all the hardware is going to be combined and it is going to be shared across these different instances of virtual machines. So the hardware is going to be shared, and these type of virtual machines are commonly found in data centers, for example, because you can use these type of virtual machines to do what is known as snapshotting and cloning, the benefits that we discussed previously. Because in a data center environment with this special operating system layer, what we can do is we can take, for example, one instance of this thing and create a copy of that and run a different instance separately. So that is what you would get from type 1 hypervisors or type 1 virtual machine managers. So with these, the main thing is the virtual machine manager capability is going to run in the kernel mode or run in the operating system kernel level. And one of the other things that can happen is, say if it is a type 1 hypervisor that we are talking about, it can run on top of a type 0 hypervisor. So if we can have a hardware level virtualization, in that virtual machine we can run another type 1 virtualizer on top of that. And any guest operating system that we have here will not have any understanding whether it is running in a virtual machine environment or not. So the guest users, their operating system can still be seen as they are running in a typical hardware environment, not as in a virtual machine environment. So the special purpose operating system that we have here, it would implement all of the specialities or all of the capabilities about hardware, exposing the hardware capabilities, device drivers and so on will be implemented in this operating system layer, and anything on the above layer will see a direct access to a virtual machine instance without understanding whether it is a virtual machine instance or not. So we have to use some special purpose operating system for this, but other than that, here we can still build separate virtual machines on top of an operating system layer. Then the third type of virtual machines that we can use is what is called the type 2 hypervisors or type 2 virtual machine managers. So here what we have is, we have our hardware layer at the bottom. So the hardware layer is there. On top of the hardware layer, we will have any other operating system. So an operating system, but this operating system is not a special purpose operating system. In type 1 hypervisors, we have special purpose operating system, but in type 2 hypervisors, we don't need a special purpose operating system. It can be any operating system. On top of that, the virtual machine manager is going to run as an application. So for example, inside your Windows computer, you can run a VirtualBox virtual machine manager. VirtualBox is an application. You can run it as an application inside your Windows operating system, and that would be the virtual machine manager that can host a number of guest operating system inside that. So this particular virtual machine manager will be as same as any other application in that computing environment. So you can have a underlying Windows computer, underlying hardware, Windows operating system, on top of that a VirtualBox virtual machine manager, and in parallel you can run a Word or PowerPoint or browser also. So it is going to be same as any other host processors, but inside that you can have any virtual machine inside that. So one of the disadvantages with this approach is because there is significant delay in terms of between the hardware and the actual execution, because there's multiple layers of applications, virtual machine managers, host operating system and so on. So it can lead to certain performance issues, less performance compared to other type of virtual machine managers. But the main advantage is we can do it without needing for any special purpose operating systems and so on. So you can even do it on a normal laptop computer that you have. As long as it has certain level of resources, you can share that among multiple instances of the operating system. So now let's look at an example of a virtual machine manager. Here what we are looking at is VMware, for example, and what we would have here is, say we will have an underlying hardware layer, and there we would have some CPU, memory and input output devices, and all of these things are going to be managed by the host operating system. In this case it could be Linux, it could be Windows or anything else. And on top of that, we will have a number of applications. So this could be any application like your browser or your word processor or anything can be an application on top of the host operating system. But then Another application that we can have on the host operating system would be this virtual machine manager. So this virtual machine manager is going to be another application that is running on top of the host operating system. So inside that virtualization layer, we will have the virtual machine manager that is going to do the basic virtual creation and managing of virtual machines, and then we would have multiple instances of virtual machines on top of each, and above that we would have any number of applications inside those virtual machine instances. So that is a basic structure we can have in a, so this is basically a type 2 hypervisor or a type 2 virtual machine manager that we can have. So in the case of VMware Workstation, it could run on any computer, any x86 or computer or any laptop or anything. It will run as a type 2 hypervisor. It can run on any number of different host operating systems, but also cater to number of different guest operating systems. And the virtualization layer is going to give access to any sort of underlying hardware, and different virtual machine instances can have different hardware allocation. Say for example, what we can do is we can say for one of these virtualization, say for example this one, we can say it has 1 GB RAM and say one core of the processor. And for this virtual machine we can say it has 4 GB RAM and 2 cores of the processor. And this one we can say it has again a 1 GB RAM and 1 core of the processor. So what we can do with this is we can separate the available resources in a different in a different structure between different virtual machine instances. And additionally we can give them access to different storages and so on. That is also possible. So what I would suggest is I would also post some guidelines and things on the LMS later, where you can download a virtual machine manager and possibly try to use that and try out some virtual machine, creating and running some virtual machine instances. So that will give you an idea about how you can use a type 2 virtual machine manager. So now let's look at some main types of virtual machine managers, or certain types where we are using virtualization. So type 0, type 1 and type 2 are types of virtual machine managers. This is few different situations where, or few different applications where virtualization technologies can be used. So we will look at some of these in a bit more detail, but one of the things is we can use it in sort of server-based applications. Application and desktop virtualization also we will discuss a bit later. We can do this for storages, and it is even possible for networking. Networking virtualization is a bit more advanced, so we are not going to look at that, discuss about that today. But the main idea is any sort of computing infrastructure can be virtualized, because we are essentially having a virtual application level, higher level implementation there. So any computing infrastructure can be to some extent virtualized. So the first type of virtualization, sort of technologies, in terms of technology, in terms of application, is what we identify as server virtualization. So what we would have here is we would have multiple physical hardware of servers, and on top of that we can have multiple virtual machine managers for each of these hardware, and on top of that we can have a number of virtual machines, multiple virtual machines, and there. So this is basically the basic way of virtualization, but we are going to do it in a server situation. So you can do this in your own computer, for example. There it is not a server, but you can also do it on a server, then that is a server virtualization, but the basic concept can be the same. And each of these instances of servers can be independently allocated to, for example, different users, different purposes. That is possible. Say, for example, a university can have a single server or a number of servers, but then it can separate multiple virtual machine instances and give that to different faculties. So different faculties can their own server and run different things. They have web servers or application servers and so on. But each faculty will have their own virtual machine that they can use, but underlying common hardware can still be used. And sometimes we may also use common shared storages here. So the benefits that we can have with this approach is we can we can get all the advantages that we discussed with virtualization. It can be significantly cheaper because we are sharing these resources between these different devices, and we can manage them easily as well because they are at a higher level, so we are not at the lowest level operating system level. These can be managed, copied across, and all these advantages will be there. Some of the standard implementations can be Citrix hypervisors, VMware, Red Hat, and like number of vendors have different implementations of this type of virtualization. Then another type is called desktop virtualization, and this is significantly different from what we have looked so far. The underlying principles are somewhat similar, but this is a significantly different approach here. So what we have here is we would have again some common hardware platform where we are going to have our operating system, all our data, our applications are going to be there. And from there, we are going to, users are going to connect to that virtualization environment from different devices, and they are going to get their desktop through this remote connection. So what you are going to get is you are going to connect from a different device, and your desktop environment itself is going to load from that remote device. So this is going to be the physical hardware that you are using is not going to be the actual computing environment. The physical hardware is just going to be a remote connection to that other server or other virtualization environment, and any computing is going to happen at the back end there, and you are just getting the input or the desktop presentation to you, and your inputs are going to be translated back to the back end, and that is where the computations and operations are going to happen. So where you would use is, say for example, with this approach, these computers don't have a lot of, they don't need to have a lot of computing capabilities as long as we have enough computing capabilities in the back end. So in an office environment, we can have thin clients that don't need a lot of computing. They can be fairly low cost devices as long as they are connecting to the remote virtualization server to access the desktop. So all the computation is happening there. And it can also enable us, because everything is going to be centralized in the back end, any updates, any new applications, everything can be easily managed. So from an administration point of view, from an IT administration point of view, it will have a lot of advantages there as well. One of the other possibilities is, if you are working remotely, say if you are working from home type of a situation, you can still use the same thing that you would use in an office environment. You will still access the same desktop, same set of applications and everything without needing anything additional. You just need some connecting capabilities to that virtualization environment. With that, you are set to go. So some of the examples of these are Citrix, ZenDesktop, there's VMware, Microsoft, different vendors have different products for these as well. And one of the other advantages with this is also security is also an advantage, especially in the case of remote working type of situations, because in a remote working scenario, working from home scenario, you are likely to use your own device and you may not know what are the different applications are there, where you are saving files and not. But if it's a remote desktop presentation, you are just using everything there. It is just a remote connection to that environment. So it has less possibilities for security issues being part of that. Then another version or extension from desktop virtualization is, in desktop virtualization, we virtualize the whole desktop environment from a remote virtualization into your computer. With application virtualization, what we have is we are only taking one application and using it from the remote environment. So the server is going to run the application and only the application is going to be presented into your computer inside a virtualization application. Everything else is going to be local. So this has again number of advantages. For example, you use a Windows 10 computer, but your organization has some older software that can only run on Windows XP. It is an operating system that is no longer supported and you are not able to use it in your hardware. But what we can do is, we can run that application only in that virtualization environment, and you can access that application only through that virtualization. Not the whole desktop is accessed, only that application is accessed. But from a user point of view, this application will seem as any other application. So inside your computer, you will access Excel, Windows, and any other virtualized application will be similar. Because you are not like a remote desktop, it will be like any other application there. So this has again some advantages of security, scalability. You can scale up, say for example, you may not be able to run certain things in your local computer, but you may be able to use it in a localized, in a virtualized remote environment. So these are some of the advantages that we would get with application virtualization. And the last type of virtualization is what is called storage virtualization. So here what we have is, we would have various storage capabilities, actual physical storage capabilities, but then we'll combine all of these storages into a single virtualized storage place, and then that can be made available to different computers, either different virtual machines or different physical machines can access this common storage. So this can be sometimes called as software defined storage or virtual storage area network, because we are connecting multiple storages into a single virtualized storage layer. So this has advantages like we can migrate storages from different hardware to another hardware without actually impacting availability of the data. We can improve reliability because this will enable certain additional possibilities for backups and so on. We can maximize utilization. So people may not use all the storage space that is available in the hardware, but with this approach, all the hardware level storages are shared, so we can utilize maximization of utilization is possible. And also because it is shared and large number of resources are pooled together, it can also be cost effective compared to having single storage approaches. So those are some of the common applications that we would use storage virtualization and other type of virtualization. So now with these various virtualization possibilities with servers, desktop applications and so on, we also have to think about what are some of the security implications that we have to consider. Because what we have is with virtualization, we are still going to use some level of resource sharing, some level of underlying processes are going to be shared, the memory is going to be shared to some extent. Even though they are allocated separately, they are still at a particular level, they are going to be still shared. And then some level of networking is going to be shared. So there are a number of things to consider like that. So the main three things that we would expect in terms of security in virtualization is, one is to have a secure network interface. So having some networking capabilities, some communication capabilities that are that can be secure. So we can secure the networking connectivity into the devices. So either between devices or even between virtual machines. As virtual networking, we need to know we can implement secure networking interfaces. Then the second thing is we need to have storage level security. So whatever the storage mechanism, virtual storages, shared storages, we need to have some level of security for those storage mechanisms. Then the third thing that is important for both of these as well is the security that we build at the execution layer and the hardware layer. So that is how we can create this secure runtime environment. So if we say this is a runtime environment for this virtual machine, how that is separated and secured from the runtime environment of the other virtual machine. So how we can ensure that different instances of virtual machines can be created and used and used without they interacting or impacting on each other. So we may use different cryptographic capabilities, different secure protocols and so on to achieve these things. The specific details of those protocols and specificities are not in the scope of this course, but that is something that you need to remember that, and it will be part of most of the common industry standard implementation of virtualization. But you need to know that these things are necessary for us to use virtualization effectively and securely. So now let's look at cloud computing. So we have looked at virtualization and we have a basic understanding of what virtualization is and how we are using, and we are some of the places we can use virtualization. And when we think about cloud computing is a evolution, or is a part of evolution of virtualization, and it is a way of using virtualization as a technology. So what we have here is, here we are going to have again number of different computers, number of different physical computers, and those resources of those physical computers are going to be pooled together, they are going to be shared together and to create separate operating environments. So then these different resources can be again given out separately to different entities. So in that sense, it is fairly close to virtualization. And in terms of cloud computing, when we say clouds, they can be both private implementation or public implementation. Say for example, within an organization itself, you can have a local instance of cloud computing within the network where we are still sharing these resources, or you can use a public cloud computing infrastructure like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or something like that is also possible. So the basic concept is very similar to virtualization, but it is somewhat different to how we are using them. So in one of the main differences in virtualization, you will use a virtualization manager and you would normally access that to create and destroy machines, for example. Whereas here you would have some API, you would normally connect through that API interface and these you would not have a lot of visibility of what are the available hardware and where these are going to be created, but underlyingly it is going to still carry some level of virtualization there. So when it comes to cloud computing, there are 5 common characteristics that we can use to identify whether that is a cloud computing infrastructure. So first one is it should be on-demand service. So the resources and allocation of resources should be available in an on-demand manner. Say for example, and also without having any human interaction. So these everything should be doable through software implementations. So what you would have is, say for example, I can go and allocate a new virtual machine, a new cloud computing instance there, and say this computer needs to be 1 GB RAM, this particular processing speed, this particular hard storage space, and I should be able to create that without any interaction with other human intervention. So that is on-demand service. Then it should have broader network access. So any of these resources should be available across a network. So you should be able to access it not just through a particular computing device, you should be able to access through any interface, through a web interface or through a different application interface. You should be able to access through a networking infrastructure. Then other thing is, in cloud computing, they are going to pool together the different resources and they are going to share them between the users. So what they are going to use is they are going to share, say for example, all the storages that are available in the different instances of the physical devices are going to be pooled together to create a common storage that is going to be available to all the different devices. Again, if we think about it, these concepts are still fairly similar to what we discussed in virtualization. Then another important one that is particularly important in cloud computing is what is called rapid elasticity. So here what we have is, you may start with a particular instance of a cloud computer, that is, say you start with 1 GB RAM and 50 GB storage, but then your needs are increasing, so you should be able to increase the RAM to 4 GB and the storage to 200 GB without any issues. You should be able to increase these things without any you can acquire resources and release resources in a need for basis manner. And the fifth characteristic is what we call measured service. So here, if the service provider, if the cloud service provider is saying you are getting 2 GB RAM and a 2 GHz processor and this particular storage speed, then that should be ensured that you are getting those resources at particular speeds and capacities. So the available resource will be measurable. So if we do virtualization, there it will depend on, in a basic virtualization, if we keep on adding more and more virtual machines, the actual available capability or resources cannot be ensured at a particular rate. But with cloud computing, we will want to ensure that if you ask for 2 GB RAM, you will always get 2 GB RAM. Where that resource is pooled together doesn't matter, but you should get that 2 GB RAM. So that is the point about virtualization, that is about cloud computing, and difference from virtualization, that is measured service. Then when thinking about cloud computing, we can identify a number of different instances or applications of this as well. So we can think about software as service. So these are things like Microsoft Office 365 or Google applications. So these are software applications that are available as cloud computing, available on the cloud computing infrastructure. Then we can have platform as a service. So these are things like you get an instance of a operating system or a database or a web server. So you will have access to that web server, but you don't have anything else there. So you can do any configuration in the web server and you can use the web server. So that is the platform as a service. Then you can have infrastructure as a service. So that is where you get a physical machine itself, a virtual machine itself, accessible through the clouds. So this is where things like Amazon EC2 in Google Clouds, you can get virtual machines. So this is the concept of virtual machines available through cloud computing. So that is known as infrastructure as a service. So these are few different ways cloud computing can be made available as a service. So it could be just for at a software layer, at only as through Office applications are available. Even a web email application is a software as a service. So a Gmail can be considered as a software as a service because that mail client is available as a software as a service. Then you can have certain web servers as platform as a service, and then some virtual machines as infrastructure as a service. And one of the reasons why this clouds as a service or cloud computing is has gained a lot of prominence in the recent years is because it can give a lot of advantages to many organizations. So it can give a lot of advantages in terms of how we think about the computing infrastructure for a particular organization. Say, when we think about, if we think about a large organization and they need to have their web server, their email server, they need to have a lot of their own application server data and so on. So they need to have some hardware servers in the organization. Then they need to have some people to manage those things. They need to think about backups. They need to think about what are the alternatives when if there's a fire hazard. So all these things they have to think about. But if we think about a large cloud service provider like Google or Amazon, they have the advantage of scale. So if you are an individual organization, at most you can say in a typical small business environment, you can have 1 or 2 servers. Whereas in a Google data center, they can have thousands of servers. So it will give the advantage of what is called consolidation and also economy of scale. Say because you need 2 people to manage 5 servers, but the same 2 people can also manage 50 servers. So the minimum requirement of different specialized people can be now scaled up to a more number of resources. And then they can also get advantage in terms of power, IT cost, networking cost, internet cost. So there are a number of advantages there as well. And one of the advantages, the other sort of set of advantages are you don't need to worry about technicians, maintenance, keeping backups and all these things, because they can also be ensured with these cloud computing services. So those are some of the reasons why cloud computing has gained prominence in the recent years. So as a summary, if we look at the differences between cloud computing and virtualization, so virtualization is the underlying technology and cloud computing is a methodology of using that technology. So virtualization technique is what is going to be used in cloud computing, but it is an application or a use of virtualization. Then with virtualization, we will have a single physical hardware and a number of virtual instances, whereas in cloud computing, we'll have number of physical hardware and all of those resources will be pooled together and then will be shared again back into different virtual instances in an on-demand manner. And there are some other differences as well. For example, In virtualization, it is mostly a single tenant, so that is normally used by a single organization, whereas in cloud computing, multiple different non-related entities can use the same underlying physical resources there. Virtualization is normally a long-term solution, whereas cloud computing, you can even create an instance now and then leave, you not stop using it a little bit later, kind of a situation. And even in terms of cost, there are different advantages between these two as well. So there are a number of disadvantages, but the main thing to remember is the virtualization is the underlying technology, and then we use that in a particular approach to build cloud computing. So with cloud computing, the final thing that we have to think about is, so there are a number of advantages, so there's a reason why we would use these, but we also need to think about what are some of the problems and challenges that can come with using cloud computing. So first and foremost, how do we know that we can trust a cloud computing provider with our information? So for example, we are using the cloud computing services from Amazon, and how do we know we can trust our information there? How do we know that they are not going to access our information? There are some security mechanisms like encryptions and so on. So how do we know this is secure, our information will be safe there? Then another problem is, because these resources are going to be shared with multiple tenants, different users can still be in our infrastructure where our information is it safe from our competitors? Can our competitors have some back-end access to our information? So that is also an issue. One of the other key issues is about where the data is going to be and what are some of the impacts in terms of law for that. Say for example, you are a Sri Lankan company, but you use cloud computing infrastructure from a US company, and your actual data is now being stored in the US. Because your data is stored in the US and the service provider is a US company, now they are under the control of the US legislation, US laws and regulations. So whatever your data, your company data in that server may still be susceptible to any regulations, any laws, like say for example in the US, the Patriot Act, for example, for counterterrorism and so on. Using those things, will they be able to access your information? So that is something you have to think about. So, and that is one of the reasons why, for example, government applications, government infrastructure is not allowed to be stored in cloud computing infrastructure in another jurisdiction or another country because of this particular reason. And other thing that you have to remember is, because you are becoming dependent on a third-party service provider, what could happen is at a point you will become significantly dependent on them, and it may lead to a situation of vendor lock-in. So that is because everything is now running on the Amazon platform. Even though they are expensive, you have to still keep on using them because it is more expensive to move away from them. So these are some of the things that you'll have to think about when thinking about using cloud computing. It has a lot of advantages, it has a lot of use cases, but there are also some challenges and that we have to think about. So that's all we have to discuss in terms of virtualization and cloud computing in today's lesson. Are there any questions or doubts, any clarifications from things that we have discussed today? And the other thing is, I also posted an announcement about having a quiz. So ideally, we need to have a quiz sometime in the coming week. So even tomorrow is fine, or anytime next week is also fine. Just let me know a preferable time for you all to have a quiz, and then we can schedule that accordingly. So it will be a short multiple choice quiz, and I will share the specific details and guidelines via LMS once you let me know a suitable day for that. So if there are no particular questions, we could conclude the lesson for the day, and any information will be shared on LMS in the meantime. So until next time, thanks for joining in for the lesson today, and see you next time. Bye.